This is CNN Breaking News.
Thanks for being with us on CNN News Central. Just moments ago, Donald Trump lashed out at his civil fraud trial that's about to wrap up in New York. Nothing really new there. What is new, he was able to make some more of those very same claims inside the courtroom today during closing arguments. The judge made the unorthodox move of letting Trump address the courtroom with $370 million and his ability to do business in New York on the line. Let's expand the conversation now with a pair of legal experts. Former federal prosecutor Seth Waxman is with us, and so is CNN legal analyst Norm Eisen. Thank you both for being with us. Seth, if you're the prosecutor in that trial, taking in the Trump defense argument, how do you feel about your case?
Well, very strong. I don't think Donald Trump or his lawyers were really trying to fight back against this particular allegation. I think this was more about political theater. Look, the judge in this case has already ruled that Donald Trump and his entities are liable. That was determined last fall. This was supposed to be about damages. So if they were really trying to attack this case, they would be saying, look, Judge, we think you got it wrong last fall, but we respect Your Honor's opinion. Let's talk about damages. And what the Attorney General wants, $370 million, is wildly inflated. You know, the idea that we should be forever barred from business in New York, that's a ridiculous result. And so you take those issues on, you wouldn't be saying that this whole case is not good and that there's no basis in law to have found liability. The judge has already done that. That ship has sailed.
Yeah, it's a foregone conclusion, that issue of fraud, which you couldn't tell if you were just listening to Trump and his lawyer, and that's a very important point to consider.
It is. The gravitational force of the judge's summary judgment finding on that one count, on the first count in the case, is now slipping down through the remaining 6 counts where Trump is struggling to find a way to resist the judge reaching the same conclusion, and then the damages issue, the money, and the injunction, which is like a corporate death penalty for Trump and his family. They may be forced out of their businesses, depending what the judge does here. I thought that there were technical arguments, and at times during this very long trial, Trump's team actually scored some points, but they didn't focus on that in the argument today, certainly not in Donald Trump's press conference. And I listed the defenses that he laid out, that his financial valuations were perfect. That's not persuasive. We know his condo, 10,000 square feet, he said it was 30,000 square feet. And the same with Mar-a-Lago and 40 Wall Street and the Seven Springs estate, that there were no witnesses. No. The state put on witness after witness, expert witness, fact witness. He put on members of Donald Trump's own, the prosecutors, the state AG's lawyers, put on members of Donald Trump's own family to substantiate that, and on and on and on. It just was not persuasive.
Seth, I'm curious about the argument from Trump and his team that the result in this case, the ultimate verdict, perhaps barring him from doing business in New York, could impact other businesses in the city. Is that a fair claim?
Well, not really. I mean, so Donald Trump could be barred. His entities could be barred. Now, that raises the question of Donald Trump incorporated a new company across the river in New Jersey, and that company were to do business. You know, is that going to be barred by this rule if the judge imposes it? And what we'll end up seeing maybe is decades of litigation over that. Every time Donald Trump wants to do business in New York, he creates a new entity or has one of his consigliaries create a new company and they try to do business. There could be a cat and mouse game for years, if not decades. But the idea that this could bleed over into some other company, like each case stands on its own. ABC company that's being run by John Jones across the street has nothing to do with this case. This is focused on Donald Trump and his entities.
If Trump would only allow his lawyers to make real arguments. We saw this with the assassination position that his lawyers were forced into, that absolute immunity, he says, absolute immunity the lack of absolute immunity will expose every president. We've gotten along fine for 250 years without absolute immunity. You can see the Trump pressure on his lawyers. The smart thing, one of the many smart things that his lawyers should have done today is, as Seth says, hammer the remedies, not just the money, but this corporate death penalty. Why? because the appellate division has already expressed skepticism about that remedy on the earlier one-count holding, the summary judgment. They put that on hold. Why not surge there, make the judge second guess, say, Judge, whatever you do on damages, you can't do this. But Donald Trump, once again, his own worst enemy.
Seth, were you surprised there were negotiations between the defense and the judge because Donald Trump did want to take part in the closing arguments? The judge wanted there to be preconditions. Donald Trump's lawyers couldn't agree to them because he wouldn't agree to them. In the end, they go past a deadline, so it looks like he's not going to be part of the closing arguments. And then he shows up in the end and he ends up being part of the closing arguments anyway. Were you surprised it went down like that?
Not at the end of the day. I mean, this is all about political pageantry for Donald Trump, speaking to voters. And from the judge's perspective, look, this is a bench trial. There's no jury to worry about. Certainly, if we had jurors sitting in there that aren't schooled in law, there could be some concern that if there are inflammatory arguments, irrelevant arguments, political speeches made, that this jury may be unfairly tainted. But the judge knows what evidence is relevant, what he should and shouldn't be considering. And then I think at the end of the day, Donald Trump has been talking about how he's been muzzled in this case. I think the judge gave him an opportunity to speak, so Donald Trump, no longer has that muzzling argument.
Very important what's actually going on, and the judge has been clever about this. He's getting ready to give a gigantic damages verdict and very severe injunctive relief against Donald Trump. He's preparing his case for appellate scrutiny. So now Donald Trump can't complain. He wouldn't let me speak in court in my own defense on the last day. He says, I'll let you speak, but only a little bit. Then he cut him off.
Norm and Seth, appreciate the expertise. Thanks so much.
Thank you.